welcome back to Think Shank. I'm gonna just say I'm really sorry if you can hear my super aggressive air conditioner. You can probably tell I look homeless and it's really, really hot today. My apartment does not remove hot air very effectively. So I roast inside of here all summer, get used to these pasty shoulders. God damn. All right, we're hopping on because NBA trade season is officially here. Usually this doesn't happen during the actual finals, but if it's any indication of a very tumultuous and active off season, don't know what is. So trade is Desmond Bane over to, let me actually get the fucking trade. That would be really smart, wouldn't it? Trading Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for KCP, Cole Anthony, 4 unprotected first-round picks and 1 first-round pick swap. I am a big strategy. Let's talk about the vision and the concepts and the profiles of who we want and why. Then we can talk about the actual logistics. That is how I was developed early in my consulting career. We are just going to talk about a few of the things I think most people are not going to shed too much of a light on regarding Desmond Bane's fit with the Orlando Magic. Thinking about building effective teams, which originates principally off of the court and people as people and how they are going to galvanize each other into more than the sum of their parts. Number 1, roots from a young defense-first, recently reinvigorated franchise exclusively. Desmond Bane was selected 30th, dead last of the first round in the 2020 draft class, where Anthony Edwards goes number 1, infamously. I always forget how young this guy is. He could be 28, I'm not sure. They were in the same exact draft class, kind of nutty. Where they started is very important for the both of them. Very young team and a young landscape around Bane that chiefly championed defense as a non-negotiable and a key component behind early on success. We all know a few years ago when the Grizzlies took the 2 seed of the Western Conference behind one of the best defensive infrastructures in the NBA, spearheaded by Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson. Moreover, the actual franchise of Memphis had not been able to recapture the limelight and league-wide respect from its contemporaries for quite a period of time. Everybody remembers the grit and grind Grizzlies from back in the early 2010s, but obviously now we are looking at about a decade later, which maybe if you're the Wizards, you'll roll your eyes at that, but generally speaking, that is quite a long time, especially considering the host of draft capital they had cashed in on. Bringing that franchise back to at least relevance and in some senses prominence, just not in the postseason, was an experience that Bane had a front row seat to, as well as a direct hand in propagating. 2, no entitlement complex despite ample first and second option experience amid Memphis's injury turmoil. Everybody is aware for the past few seasons, it has been comedic how disemboweled the Grizzlies roster has been with injuries to Ja and Bane himself, to Jaren, to other guys, to Brandon Clark tearing his fucking Achilles like 6 times, resulted in Bane essentially being the best go-to guy, not only for creating and shooting, but actually playmaking. This is a matter of necessity, and it's a good thing that this is the best league on planet Earth. This past season, it has been remarkable the extent to which Bane has essentially eclipsed Ja Morant's overall contributions to the team. I am not saying that he has outstripped him. I am just saying he has been able to navigate primary defensive assignments from NBA all-defensive guys while purporting pretty decent vitals on his individual offensive production. And that kind of turmoil as a function of necessity is always going to be the best teacher in those moments. I'm not saying he's Darius Garland. I'm just saying that he is absolutely underrated overall, both from us fans, media members, and probably the league in general, when it comes to his floor game, both getting downhill and finishing creatively, even though he's not that fast, but also the playmaking component. 3, tough as shit. Listen to any podcast interview and tell me he will not get his fellow guys to crave tough matchups. Go ahead and search Desmond Bane on any sort of podcast interview. He sounds like a dumbass, honestly, but when you get him talking about big time games, big stakes, big moments, that dude barely bristles and is so calm and confident about it. And it translates to his play on the court when he is more than able to step up his defensive intensity and get in other guys' faces, always jumping in and defending and protecting his own guys, but he's not going to get stepped on. Far from it. He's going to get in the way, and I feel like most of the time he's not instigating a lot of the boneheaded Memphis Grizzlies plays that we've come to expect, but that kind of role modeling is the type of sophisticated toughness, do whatever it takes, do whatever my own team needs me to do, which on a weekly basis can mean literally fucking anything, is really, really credible and important as, again, a role model for these younger guys. 4, he's virtually a vet after just 5 years in the NBA in galvanizing his younger teammates under pressure with the level of turbulence that Memphis has experienced. Having to get guys like Jalen Wells to step up and guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka and Steph and everybody who was fucking good on the other team, just as an example, was really important. Not to mention the host of the young guys, Jake LaRavia, Zach Edey, to feel more confident and contributory against even the Oklahoma City Thunder, which obviously didn't result in great outcomes. The process itself was something that you could tell he was directly involved in supporting throughout the season. Again, a lot of guys miss a lot of time. You're gonna have to go in the vault to see it. He's a role player turned into a star, which brings a lot of underrated read and react ability, specifically oriented around elevating the 2 focal points on Memphis, which incidentally, those 2 focal points are kind of weirdly similar if you really think about it. Super downhill focus, drive focus, short mid-range finishing like Franz and Ja Morant. Paulo, ton of back down games, ton of turnaround games. Granted, Jaren really likes his flip shot, doesn't really shoot turnarounds, but kind of more prodding, methodical game. Just thought that was kind of interesting. In accordance with this overall theme, he is so good at essentially doing whatever a team needs him to do, which is really convenient from a personality and leadership perspective, considering how many different fucking things this guy needed to do on a nightly basis. So on nights where Franz is still really struggling to shoot, there are matchup opportunities on the other end of the floor. The other team is schematically packing the paint, like we're seeing with the Thunder right now against Franz's drives, getting into open space, positioning himself easier for his teammates, realizing when other guys potentially in secondary units haven't gotten shots in a really long time, and there are opportunities to stretch out that defense by getting them better looks instead of really forcing tough shots, reading what the defense is actually doing as a function of being a first or second option for so much of his career, understanding what the game really needs. This is all just point guard stuff. I just trust him in these kinds of moments, and with an offense on Orlando's that can really become pretty amorphous and dubious, that kind of brain power to assess where things should go, how they should get there, is really, really important. So this is the first time he is a blue chip trade piece, which is always going to bring a significant amount of pressure. And what's interesting to me the Orlando Magic being as young as they are, it's not just to deliver and produce on the offensive end, according to a lot of fans who can only read box scores. There will be and there should be pressure to lead as well. I genuinely think he's going to relish this kind of opportunity, given his backstory as a late first-round pick, role player to star player, understanding the early trials and tribulations of a young team trying to contend for its first time. That kind of pressure, I do not think will be a meaningful barrier or detriment for him. Night-to-night consistency conditioning coming from the Western Conference, I think matters a lot, because right now, the top 10 out of 12 Western Conference teams probably could have made the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. That's fucking crazy. Obviously, you play the teams in your conference much more than the others, and so that kind of attentiveness and readiness on a nightly basis is really, really important, even thinking about the depths of January when no one really fucking cares. Although we all saw what that rat race was to close the season, but the East is going to be so fucking putrid, it literally probably won't matter. They might crack the top 3 though, and that would be pretty cool. Think about how that translates to a young team where keeping focus just might not be the easiest thing. Deep familiarity with offensive breakdowns and years worth of confidence in navigating them. One of the hallmark issues of the Memphis Grizzlies in the past, where we saw Ja Morant really not weaponize any sort of outside shooting potency. That, of course, was Bane. And then you also have Jaren Jackson, who seemingly is incapable of generating assists or looks, just something that always bothered me. And so you would get possessions where Ja is getting double teamed, or you would see their offense get pretty predictable to the opposing defensive schemes. And you get these possessions, which Magic fans are intimately familiar with, where nothing fucking happens and no one knows how to create any advantages by themselves. And therefore, Bane, can you please go ahead and drive on the other team's second best defender and make something happen? Not only does that build familiarity with the opposing defenses, it's just about confidence. You get really good at what you practice. That takes a lot of reps, but ultimately you're gonna get more confident at it. We are going to see him receive more than enough opportunity to demonstrate this, and I do think that while a lot of Magic fans had resided to needing a point guard like Darius Garland or Anthony Simons, etc., firmly believe that they are going to be happily surprised by how much this guy can make happen on his own for himself and others. And last but not least, the age. I responded to a tweet that basically said the haul that the Grizzlies got was equivalent to getting Devin Booker. Maybe a little bit outdated thinking, because the reality is trades are dictated by the eye of the beholder. And what matters there is context. You need to step out of the vacuum and not think about things in absolutes. We all saw what the Knicks were willing to give up for Mikal Bridges and Rudy Gobert way back when. It's all about fit and opportunity. Devin Booker is 29 or 28 or something, and definitely a little bit farther down the age spectrum. He's also been a number 1 option, number 2 option for his entire career, leading to what I believe to be a crippling entitlement complex that has poisoned a lot of the Suns' success, in my own opinion. Go ahead and at me. He's the only common denominator of their supreme underwhelming outcomes. But Bane is only 26 years old. He is younger than Jason Tatum. And so that means he's close enough in age to Paolo, who's 22, Franz is 23, to relate with their struggles or questions or just development areas. Franz's outside perimeter shooting comes to mind. Obviously, Bane is an exquisite outside shooter, so I like that in a vacuum. Being able to relate to the human experience of being a young professional athlete struggling with a part of their game. I think he'll be close enough in age for them to take him seriously and not feel talked down to, and again, be able to freshly relate to where he came from himself and developing such confidence. But he's going to be able to do that while still developing himself, which I do think is an underlying subplot here, which is really cool. Back to the Devin Booker of it all, Bane isn't a finished product yet. And frankly, I don't know if he's been in a situation, obviously he's only been in one, where he's kind of had an infrastructure to prop him up as a true blue offensive focal point with not just play finishing responsibilities, but play initiating ones. I'm not saying he's going to become Donovan Mitchell, but I'm just saying this guy can probably still get even better getting himself downhill and using these creative totems across the chessboard with particularly Paolo as a screener. Can't wait for that. That is a lot of shoulder width there. He's kind of got the toughest thing to really get figured out, which is the pull-up three-point shot game. When you're that deadly from the outside, you're just going to magnetize more attention and get guys to jump at you, which then, of course, unlocks a lot more open space, which makes the playmaking pretty considerably easier. And then it's just a function of figuring out the spacing and where guys need to be, their sort of tendencies. Are they going to crash? Where are they going to crash from? What if they're being guarded by X? Let's attack Y. I'm just saying that from what I have seen, there's been a lot thrust onto this dude and not a lot of consistency of his environment where he was respected and invested in like a potential number 2, number 1 option for big stints of important games. That is just a list of some of the top things I thought of off of the dome that make this particular fit and move absolutely brilliant for Orlando. And notice, really at no point did I solely fixate on outside spacing or movement shooting or whatever. If you have rooted for an upstart team, all of these human-centered aspects matter a lot, and you will know it. I love the toughness, I love the experience, I love the conditioning and the seriousness. You blend that with his upside from the capability end. I think that there's a real chance that this serves as the Jrue Holiday, Alex Caruso missing Infinity Stone for one team that wasn't in true contention last year to catapult itself into true blood contention next year. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.